Hi there everybody and welcome to Queer Armor. Painting your firearm is something there are a lot of misconceptions around. It's really easy to fall into the trap of thinking that these are hyper delicate things and you spend a bunch of money on it and you don't know what you're going to screw up and you don't want to spend the money to get it repaired, so you're just going to not touch it ever. And on the one hand, I kind of get it. I do. I really do. But frankly, you're not going to hurt your gun from painting it in the vast majority of cases. I'll get into a couple of exceptions in a second, but honestly, there is so much misinformation around what you can and can't paint, about the best ways to paint, about how painting works generally, and what you should and shouldn't do. I'm here to do a little bit of myth busting. Show y'all what the fuck actually happens when you paint. Before we get into that, big shout out to my Patreon supporters. The only reason I'm able to continue doing this shit is because of my Patreon supporters. Y'all mean the world to me. I had a break for a bit because COVID absolutely kicked my ass, as did kind of life generally for a minute. But I'm back and able to do this, and the only reason I'm able to do this with any sort of frequency is because I have Patreon supporters. So if you want to see this become more regular content, if you want to just support this channel, please head over to Patreon. Lowest tier is $1 a day and it gets you early access to these videos. So, spray painting. First of all, you'll notice this ugly fucking thing around my face. Because before we get into any of how the paint works and why we do what we do, some fucking safety rules. First of all, cardboard is really fucking helpful. Put cardboard down basically anywhere that you're worried about paint getting. Break down old Amazon boxes is a great source of cardboard. Firearms where prep is absolutely required is stuff like this revolver. Despite the myths of revolvers being simple, there's lots of complicated timing gears and gubbins in here that just being fractions of a millimeter off could affect. The thing, you're not worried about the paint like breaking the metal. What you're worried about in this case is if you mistime a revolver, the cylinder is no longer lined up with the barrel, and when the round goes off, it goes off in the most exciting way possible. So for something like this, first of all, let me demonstrate. That is completely clear. With something like this, what we're going to end up doing is taking off the grips. Now, I can't show you how to disassemble and reassemble this, so we're going to have to just cut now. Okay, so we have disassembled that revolver into two separate pieces. We have the grips separated, and these give it kind of a 1800s vibe, which, don't get me wrong, I get some people are going for. But this here is Queer Armor, so we're going to paint them purple. While doing so, we're going to explain how you paint something without getting runs. So you'll see we have two somewhat oblong objects here. And the important thing when you are painting something weird is to try and create passes in your head and do a bunch of them. Paint will dry, and while it dries, it does something called cooking off. If you do not allow for a perfect buildup, some of the material will cook off after others has already cooked off, and it will push through, and because physics is lazy, it's going to go through the easiest way that it can, which is your fresh paint. All of this ends up meaning what you need to do to get good paint is consistent and even passes. You need to do them fairly quickly. You need to do them robotically. Do not go back and fill in spaces. The more time you spend on any individual area, the higher the chance that you'll have runs. Going up or going down is a bit of a controversial discussion. Most larger artists advocate for filling down because there is a little bit of adjustment you can make for additional fill. There are some that argue doing the opposite is better because you'll have the material that it's dripping into cooking off and you have the best chance of it dissipating. In both cases, the thing to focus on is not what direction to do it in. It's doing it quickly, evenly, and robotically. still can't figure out exactly what vibe this is. So go down in the comments and tell me what vibe you think this revolver is now. I'm definitely feeling it. It looks cool. I would say there is absolutely a wild misconception when it comes to painting with firearms. You have a lot of people who think it's something that I put a fair amount of money into. I'm worried about it breaking, and it's fragile, right? Like, it's got parts that could break. For most, like, handguns and most ARs, especially if you have the optics off, no. Fun fact, guns contain explosions. Paint's not gonna hurt it in most cases. Paint can be annoying to get off certain components, but I'm gonna show you a style of painting now that kind of exemplifies why you don't need to give nearly as much of a fuck. The grunt paint job. And the result of all of that grunting is this. It is the High Point's finished state. Actually, I hate to say it, it actually looks pretty good now. But I think that kind of also highlights that, like, any pistol will, one, suddenly look a lot better like this. But also, if you're looking to generate a camo setup, a big black mass on one side is not going to help break up your silhouette. So quick camo for a pistol is fairly easy. Now that we've covered the basics of painting, how to paint a rifle, and a lot of people are coming to this looking for kind of a one-stop, one-and-done technique. So that's actually going to be this part, because I have a way that you can paint your rifle with soap. And not only can you paint your rifle with soap, you can paint your rifle sort of procedurally. So you paint one layer, you do a thing randomly that you don't have to put a lot of, like, creative thought into, and then you paint another layer, and you automatically have, by just washing it off, a finished paint job that is multi-layered and breaks up the silhouette of the gun. Now this process is relatively simple. All you're going to need is a coat of paint for the base, a coat of paint to put above it, some soap, couple bottles of water, a knife to stab into the bottles. Also, some space that you can both paint on and get wet is probably going to be needed. Just tape off the right inside the trigger. Stick a mag in there and you're pretty much good. The bits that you definitely need to worry about are either taking all of this off or covering any of the glass material. Once it has dried, you take your water bottle and you take your knife and you stab it . And here is the final product. Now you can already see it got a little bit washed out during some of the cleaning process, but one, this is never going to be, your goal is not perfect aesthetic. The goal is breaking up the shape of this. But more importantly, you don't like the look of it, it's spray paint. It's real easy. These are the kinds of things you can just do again and again. The paint's not gonna hurt it. So, we've gone over what paint does. We've gone over why it does it. We've gone over how to apply an even coat. We've gone over how to make something kind of jazz up and look cool. we've gone over a basic paint job for her, a simple procedural paint job, and I hope a few people have at least gotten past the idea that firearms are these hyper-fragile things that you should never do any changes to. We've got a bunch more projects like this coming in. Thank you all for tuning in for this, especially to everybody on my Patreon, all these names here. I really do appreciate everyone. The only reason I get to keep doing this shit. That's gonna be it for me. Stay dangerous, y'all. Keep each other safe. And remember, moral doesn't mean legal, and Stonewall was a fucking riot. Peace.